Hi, I'm Jana, and welcome to the Kind Community Show. We uncover the stories, tactics, skills of people doing great things for the planet. We hope you use these experiences and practical advice to positively impact you and your own life and those around you. Our primary aim is to make the sustainable attainable through education, transparency, and collaboration. Have you ever wanted to understand more about the ingredients in your skincare? Have you ever found yourself stuck making a decision on whether to choose organic or non-organic skincare products? In today's episode, you'll hear our conversation with husband and wife duo Kirstie and Luke Sherriff, founders of skincare brands Pink's Boutique and more recently Proverb Skin. Born in 2008, Pink's Boutique are one of the original certified organic and vegan skincare brands. Their mission is to empower women to understand skincare with honest expert advice. Proverb Skin was built with better health and performance in mind while giving information and insights into the ingredients that go into the products to help customers make informed decisions when purchasing skincare. This episode is great because your skin is the largest organ and the major defense against the external environment. It's important that you understand how to look after it. Hi guys, welcome and thanks for joining me today.
Hello.
Good to see you guys.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, pleasure.
Wonderful. So we're streaming live across LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook, and across Clubhouse. So welcome everyone to the room. Firstly, what made you start your own skincare brands?
Kirstie can take that one.
Is
I started first.
the weirdest thing. So yeah, we've got a bit of a his and her situation going on here. So Pink Boutique was first out, but however, totally randomly because of professional rugby. And most people look at me quite oddly when I say that. So when I left university, fell into beauty therapy and started teaching really early on. And so like all therapists, got a huge exposure to all the professional brands and the fact that, to be honest, you get very highly marketed at, beautiful bottles, beautiful boxes, and that was what we were doing. Meanwhile, Luke was playing at Harlequins, and he had in the early 2000s a fitness nutritionist turn up called Phil Richards, who we still work closely alongside. He's currently training Eddie Hall, world's strongest man, and this guy literally changed everything. So they changed their washing powders, their washing up liquids. They were eating organic steak and broccoli at 7 o'clock in the morning. And it was the weirdest thing to live through.
I didn't think it was that weird.
But like they literally tested them, how high they could jump, how quick they were over 10 meters, because it was all performance driven. He was literally saying to them, boys, you're showering 25 times a week. You need to think about shower gel. You need to think about your deodorant. And as the professional therapist in the household, bathing in product, I'd never really thought about it. And so it was that moment, it was Pandora's box opened. I started to research ingredients, and literally the thing I loved, which was the beauty industry, just like crumpled around me as I realized that it's just seriously cheap goop in very expensive bottles and boxes.
What does Soil Association Certified Organic mean, and why is it important to you?
Okay, perfect. So when we started this research, what became really clear is that people just weren't telling the truth. And it was very difficult to try and understand what natural was versus organic. And the only way I got to in the end was realizing that you needed a third party. You needed someone else to say that what you were doing was true. And so the Soil Association are the main organic badge in the UK. Globally, they've actually got the highest standard. They're the most difficult to get, and they are brutal. So they basically audit everything from every single ingredient that's coming from the soil, how that soil was treated, who picked it, how they stored it, how it was moved to you, because choosing organic is choosing a very different price point of ingredient as the producer and as the consumer. And once we were doing it, I was like, we need someone to prove, other than us just saying it and trying to market it, that we really are doing it.
Okay. And so it seems like there's quite a bit of like greenwashing going on in the skincare industry. What advice can you give our audience to make sense of it all?
You could spend a lot of time listening to Kirstie. She's got some great videos on it, but in essence, I don't really like the word cynical, but as Kirstie said, you do have to think, quite simply. Like, think of an ingredient. Would you understand it when you read it? Is a pretty good place to start. And just dig a layer deeper. We're not asking you to become experts in formulation. We're not asking you to understand every ingredient. But there are a few basic ones which a lot of people talk about: paraben, sodium lauryl sulfate. There's sort of key nasties that anyone can sort of look up. But ultimately, they just need to take a little bit more time at just looking through it. And there's a well-known high street brand with a product called, I shouldn't say, but the name is very green sounding, and yet it sits on a shelf at a price which, as Kirstie just pointed out, is very unlikely to be as green as it says it is, because you just can't produce good quality products. Think of it in terms of food. Ultimately, you do, and the soil stations are very good in that department as well. You can trust that what you're getting is a better quality product. Price isn't the only differentiator, but looking for some sort of level that they've put some effort into that sourcing, or the safety of that ingredient, just will make you feel more confident that what you're getting is what you say. Don't be afraid to ask the question, basically. I mean, when we started out 12 years ago, we didn't know any of this, so you can just ask a question. And I think Kind Communities you've talked about is about that education and about having a platform that people can get that much more transparently. I think
the first thing that you have to do is open your eyes to the fact that it's just not what the marketeers are showing you. So when my entire last 12 years, predominantly Pink Boutique goes into salons and spas. You can buy it on the website to use at home, or the therapist will sell it to you. But I'm essentially walking into a building of what are theoretically really educated professionals. And what we kind of blow their mind with is natural and organic are very different. That's the first thing. And then the second just takeaway, because I always want to leave people with things to take away, is that you can put organic or natural on a bottle with no authority to do so. You could literally put 2% organic in and still put organic in your name. There is no current regulation or control of beauty. So I think the first thing to do, like Luke said, is just be really aware.
Kirstie, you host a regular live Q&A series called The Brutal Truth. What do you hope your customers will learn from that series?
Possibly that I'm really not a very good saleswoman, because I'm just too balanced. And the point of The Brutal Truth was for people to send us questions about anything, be it organic, natural, skincare, female entrepreneurship, what they should be buying for their kids. So it's very wide. But what I started my life as an educator, and I just can't get away from it. So literally, The Brutal Truth this week was about deodorant. Proverb has just launched a new natural refillable deodorant, and there I find myself reeling them off other people's deodorants to consider as well, because what Brutal Truth is about telling the truth, which is very rare in the beauty industry. And so it really is hopefully someone that you can learn to trust, because I literally have drank some sort of truth serum, and we'll tell them everything I know on both sides, pros and cons, about anything they ask.
Wonderful. Can you tell us a bit more about the journey behind Proverb Skin's recent launch of the natural refillable deodorant?
Yeah, I can't take the credit for it, but my journey into this, although it started with the sports angle, me looking to improve my performance, eating differently, which had a knock-on effect for Kirstie, the way she led to the industry. When I finally retired from that and was in Pink's Boutique, we were just looking at whether there was an avenue we were missing with regard to the way people think about health more broadly. And obviously in beauty, the word holistic is used a lot, but we use a 360 approach in the sense of your environment has a massive impact on how you perform. So what you're putting on your skin is massively underrated. The people you surround yourself with, the impact you're having in the environment, whether it be polluting and hopefully not. There are more and more people that are looking at their lives in that way and want products and experiences that enhance that lifestyle, and that's the way we live. And so it was just kind of conscious that, well, we're appealing to them on a more retail scale. So Pinks is bedded and historically very strong in the spa market, and the people that find it by that route we're very grateful for, very big fans. But there was a broader audience, particularly active in sort of more my way of thinking, that come at it from that angle as opposed to necessarily the aesthetics angle of wanting to look a certain way, which is all intertwined. And we just, having launched Proverb as a skincare range and making inroads in that, we're trying to work out how you really sort of start someone's day in the right way. And deodorant and body wash and those elements are very much the sort of much more used product and seem like a really good opportunity. What then happened is we sat down.
We had a meltdown.
Yeah, we basically, in the brutal truth of it, we sat down and we're like, okay, so we want to bring a deodorant into the range. It's a good way to get into people's lives. But if we're going to be doing that, what's the best way to do it?
Like, you just think about how many deodorant containers people use. Like, all skincare is consumable, but deodorant's absurd. Like, most aerosol spray deodorants, people on average, from what we've been studying and testing, get through them in 2 to 3 weeks. And as an eco brand, you're suddenly going, right, we're going to launch a product that could be throwing 12 to 20 canisters away a year. It's like, we can't do that.
So the formulation was always going to be natural and clean and safe, and that's where Kirstie comes in. So it's actually a solid state deodorant. It lasts much longer, which in itself is more sustainable. But then as Kirstie said, I sat in the moment in the car. It's probably the only thing we haven't posted on social media.
We did video it.
10-minute breakdown. I'm like, how do we fill the gap between consumers wanting to do better and understanding there's a problem, but equally they don't want to compromise. They don't want to have to think about, it doesn't need to be difficult to get. It wants to arrive when they need it. They also, what do they do with the packaging? Whatever it comes in, it's going to come in something. Like, we don't want them to have to wash it down, leave it to one side for half a day, just things that they wouldn't normally do. And that became a bit of a realization that businesses are going to have to solve this problem. And that's where Kind Community comes in. Business and products are going to have to solve it for the consumers. So they don't have to think twice about what they're doing, but that they know they're doing something better. So the refillable deodorant is relatively unique in that, while the outer case might look, like something you've seen before, the refill, which Kirstie can demonstrate. Actually, can she? She's brought an open. No, she can't. You can bring one with her.
I can.
She's fine. Just my able assistant.
This is my Debbie McGee.
Yeah, exactly. Arrives, so it's subscribable. It's going to come, when you need it. But ultimately, when it does come, it's the most naked refill there is. So instead of being another container to put inside a container, it's actually wrapped in compostable paper that then fills in your reusable case. So this you keep for life, and single-use plastic out the window.
So the first thing you do is choose your case color. Then you choose your flavor, and that's in this special paper. So one of the things we really want to do with Proverb after this mini meltdown of we give a shit, consumers give a shit, but they actually are not willing to compromise in any way, shape or form. We're going to really try and drive to be one of the first brands to really deliver beauty in paper, which is a challenge, but we're willing to take it.
I mean, if you look into a room in your household, if you're considering becoming more sustainable in your lifestyle, take a look at what rooms are that you can take a chunk out of, first of all, and understand, where is my impact coming from? And if you look in the bathroom, it's full of plastics. You look at your toothpastes, you look at most of the toothbrushes made out of plastic, and that in itself uses a lot of energy. They last forever. So what you've done there in eliminating the need for continuous containers being thrown away and purchased and used and made, you've got one. And then when you're actually delivering it, it's not arriving in another container, it's coming in a compostable piece of paper, which is wonderful. I mean, personally, I subscribe, I use it. And for me, it was more of a move of, I understood how toxic deodorants and antiperspirants were out of an aerosol can. So I was looking for a sustainable alternative, and actually discovered your crowdfunding campaign, and fell in love with it. And I've been a fan ever since. I love how the refill just arrives, and I'll just slot it in when I use it. It lasts way longer than the cans, and I'm a happy man, and I don't smell.
The other thing that's really interesting from when you look at your bathroom is not only is it predominantly plastic, the recycling stats for bathrooms are woeful. So people are really good in the kitchen. Like, you're getting to the point where your kitchen, you've probably got your 3 different bins and you do it. But Exeter University, we kind of jumped on some of the things they were doing, and they were looking at stats of bathroom waste. And it's just nothing like we're doing in our kitchens, because we just haven't got the room set up with the bins. So only a third of UK bathroom waste is actually even being recycled. So yeah, it's pretty mesmerizing.
It's horrific, really, when you think about it. I guess that also comes down to ease, and when you're in the bathroom, you haven't got your 3 bins. You've just got maybe 1 bin that you throw everything in straight away, and you're not taught about what plastics can be recycled and what not. Usually it's a combination of a waterproof label on plastic, and that in itself isn't recyclable. So I commend you for your work you're doing in that space. Can you maybe share a bit more information about the actual ingredients that the audience should be aware of to avoid?
Yeah. So this is my bit, probably. I always get told off for talking too much, Anna. I'm getting the look. You feel free to tell me all this. So in a typical deodorant, so deodorant and antiperspirant are different first. So what we all think of as deodorant, if we're going really general, so what we all grew up with and what you would see in a drugstore or a supermarket, your Shaw's, your Mitchum's, your Right Up, they're antiperspirants. So they work by using aluminium to basically plug all the sweat ducts under your arms. We sweat why?
We sweat for lots of reasons. It's actually very healthy to sweat, so stopping it isn't necessarily the most sensible thing, but keeping your body cool, homeostasis, it's pretty good. There's actually 4 different types of sweat, aren't there? Oh, what is that? Yeah, so you don't need to go into the details, but yeah, sweating is natural. Don't worry about sweating. Smelling is more of people's issue. Yeah,
so what's really weird in the first place is the deodorant industry's grown up to stop what is a really, really important body function, which is sweating. So that in itself is a bit bizarre. Sweat comes out odorless. It's actually when it hits the surface, the bacteria that are there in your underarms is what starts to create that odor. And so deodorant doesn't have those aluminium plugs, but it's there to basically get rid of the odor. Whether it's antiperspirant or deodorant, in most brands, as soon as you're in an aerosol, just by default of being the aerosol, you've got to get it out. And the fact that you can put a flame to it and literally make a flamethrower should tell you everything. You've basically got propylene and butane gases that are there, nothing to do with you smelling, nothing to do with your skin, literally for the spray element. And there's been multiple studies looking at sprays. I mean, obviously, a few years back when we were all younger, there was the whole CFC gas issue, which I don't really think has gone away. But also like links to particularly in younger people like asthmas, like they are airborne. So whatever you are spraying, you are breathing in. It is going into your lungs. So anyone that's got any sort of kind of issues with asthma and respiratory, they're not ideal. Anything that sprays, room fresheners, deodorants, body sprays, perfumes, there is always a risk of being an irritant. And then what you also tend to find most of them have is quite high alcohol bases, and sometimes even things like triclosan. So it's just not something you consider what's actually in your deodorant. You judge all of it on smell.
Well, yeah, and ironically, an aerosol deodorant doesn't seem like there's much in it because it's predominantly gases projecting, the few ingredients that are active onto you, and that seems like a lot of excessive material to be using.
Yeah,
and it's inefficient.
I mean, the pin-up ingredient in the deodorant world to potentially avoid is aluminium. It's the one that gets lots of press. And I was talking about this in Brutal Truth this week. There are genuine medical studies that are clearly linking it to cancer. There are then medical studies that say the complete opposite. So it's one of, like all of the ingredients like parabens and aluminium, you will find both sides of the argument. And so I think in Pink's Boutique and Proverb, our mantra has always been, the minute there's even a question, if you can do the same job without it, or a better job without it, then why wouldn't you? And that's the kind of really core base of both of our brands and why we make those products.
What's been, and perhaps still are, some of the biggest challenges faced when ensuring sustainable practices are an integral part of your business decisions?
Packaging. All right, number one, top of the list. And it's what we've been talking about anyway, but there's lots of other things you can do. We can offset our energy. We can, be more conscious of how much, packaging we use to deliver stuff. The office, whether we're now paperless. All of those things that I think are great. But essentially, at the end of the day, we are a product company, and it has to arrive in something. And the technologies to deliver it in the way we want are coming, but they are, something that we look at every day. We literally have a strategy meeting once a week, thinking down the roadmap of products. And in instance, in being the brutal truth about it, it makes launching new products quite difficult because you're conscious now of how far you've come with the deodorant, and you don't want to bring anything out that doesn't measure up. So that's the biggest challenge. But it's definitely a challenge worth meeting, because ultimately, we did something quite interesting the other day. We did a photo shoot the other day for the deodorant, and we have other packaging in the business. We're quite honest about that. We're trying to improve that. But Layla, our daughter, saw all the other packaging.
We put Luke in the back and covered him in plastic bottles.
She's like, why have we got all these plastic bottles? And I was like, well, we have products like sanitizer that it needs to go in. So there's an example of a product that safety-wise, meeting standards, has to go in plastic right now. But, at the same time, in her eyes, as a young girl, she's like, why have we even got that? And so when you think about that as a product business, it becomes quite a daunting prospect to get rid of it entirely. But if we don't either have a single-use version or an alternative, and the alternatives aren't always straightforward. So everyone thinks glass is a great alternative, and it is in many ways, but it's also very heavy to move around. You put it in a gym bag and it breaks, you could cause yourself quite a serious injury. And there are other considerations other than just the overarching message. And this comes back to that moment in the car where the consumer wants no plastic in their life. And again, I get that, but it's using it in the right way is the bigger problem. It's not, and that's why food in the kitchen is interesting. Going back to Kirstie's point, is this whole food packaging thing is taken off. And everyone instantly sees it in their life. You go, I'm back shopping, you're like, this is ridiculous. Why is
that avocado got a plastic package?
Yeah, but somehow the shampoo in your bathroom, doesn't resonate quite in the same way, but yet it's probably having a bigger impact. So, we are trying to work with people to understand what the best solution is. Isn't always what it may seem. It clearly involves using less plastic in the long run, and it clearly involves making sure where it goes at the end. And that was the big problem that we came up with, which is, or one we're trying to solve, which is that idea of not having to compromise, because consumers can't be expected to know that they have to peel off their label or that they should really wash out. I mean, I wash stuff in the washing machine before I put it in the recycling. Dishwasher, yeah. I wash the machine sometimes. And people are like, what are you doing? I was like, well, if you send that to recycling with all the crap, whether it be peanut butter or shampoo in it, it's more chance it's going to get down the line and they're just going to toss it out and not recycle it. So that's a lot for someone to understand. Paper, like Kirstie alluded to, is the one that not only biologically will biodegrade faster than everything else or be compostable, just psychologically, I think people get paper recycling, and I think we can be more confident that the paper recycling is going to a much more wholesome version of recycling than plastic. So. And
I think my biggest personal challenge and gripe would be a bit like greenwashing of ingredients has annoyed me for 10 years in Pink's Boutique. In a proverb world now is the greenwashing of packaging. So I've seen deodorants where they're saying this case is made entirely from plants. Like, what are you talking about? It's a bioplastic. You've got ethanol that's come from sugarcane as opposed to a fossil fuel, but it is categorically not all made from plants. And so I think the next 5 years for the beauty, but maybe all markets that have got this plastic challenge, is going to be the kind of falsehoods delivered to consumers. The kind of this aluminium wins, it's much better. No, it's not. If you really, really delve into how aluminium is dug and mined versus the fact that we all drive cars, we all turn our lights on, and we're all consuming fossil fuels, and those petrochemicals that are used in plastic are arguably potentially a sustainable byproduct. It's just so complex, but nobody wants to really understand it all.
What would you like other companies to learn from Pink's Boutique and Proverb Skin?
Go.
I was going to say that telling the truth pays off in the end, but arguably, and I have lived this, it's a much, much slower way to grow a brand. If you've got a great marketing statement that you're willing to kind of tongue-in-cheek say made entirely with plants, and that you can boom through that, and you're willing to live with the mistruths behind that, then I know how you get there quicker. But I mean, we're now 12 years in and seeing that unbelievable loyalty because we've just always told people the truth.
Yeah, and it takes a huge amount of effort to do that, and I can see why, going back to the greenwashing thing, it's easy to jump on a bandwagon. For instance, replying to every Facebook post where someone, has a view that's different from yours in a way that's constructive and educational takes probably 10 times as long as just telling them to do one.
Or hiding it. And pretending it was never there.
They never had that question. And those are the things that, you wake up and you're like, okay, you have to take a big breath and go, we're trying to deliver a message and be transparent. That involves actually answering questions and being able to, admit when you didn't do something perfectly or you're working on something in your business and not being afraid to say that. But it's just a lot of work and it's not a short win. But, the one thing to finish on from that regard is people use the word sustainable. It's become a soundbite for packaging, for lots of fuel, all of those things. But something that's truly sustainable can be repeated over and over again without, degrading its environment. And a business is just the same. So taking a load of cash to grow a business like Uber, which isn't profitable, which is basically a pyramid scheme, it doesn't seem very sustainable to me. So, for me, I think one thing I want people to take away is you can grow, a successful business and it be genuinely sustainable from the ground up, so that the people you employ have confidence you're going to be there. The people that you work around are in the right environment to want to be there in a year, in 2 years. You get more loyalty from them. You ultimately build something that can fulfill itself financially as much as anything for the lifetime of the business. So, yeah.
What companies do you take inspiration from and which leaders do you admire most?
Current crush is Brewdog.
Yeah.
I think I've kind of proven what I've said on a massive scale. So
on a very, very large, very quick scale. Well done, boys.
And I think for them, predominantly in the looking after their staff, building a community around their product, I'm sort of, or taking on the big dog, excuse the pun, but doing something that seemed unthinkable, which is take on a big brewery, a big company like Diageo, but actually deliver something that people get behind because they can see the process. They were either involved in the crowdfunding, or they can see that they're innovating in great ways environmentally, or just the fact that they look after their staff in what seems to be a very supportive and inclusive way. So yeah, that's
having run our beauty schools and having spent most of my life standing in other people's spas and salons. The thing that's very, very obvious for anyone out there that's an entrepreneur has got their own business is that the staffing element is one of the hardest things you will ever, ever, ever do. And in our sector particularly, it's not done very well. There's a huge turnover of staff in beauty therapy. I think it's a bit like plumbing, like being a therapist is your own skill. So people, you only have to be annoyed at work one day and the next day they're like, right, I'm going to go and set up on my own because I'm delivering this £80 massage and you're taking all the money. And I've always been trying to convince people to build models. Like the dream is, how do you keep people with you for 10 years, for 20 years? And it's not done that well. And I think that's what we've both loving about what we're seeing from the Brewdog boys.
which probably leads into your next question, if I can remember rightly, about books. There's a really good book called The E-Myth, which is really good for anyone thinking of setting up their own business, which leads on what Kirstie said about if you have an individual skill that you're passionate about, but you're working for someone else delivering that, it's quite easy to think, well, I could just take that and set up my own business. But going back to that sustainable point about the business as a whole, as Jana knows far better than we do, having run more than one of his own companies, is, taking an idea or a skill that you use every day, which people love and probably very complimentary about you as a plumber or you as a beauty therapist, and scaling that into a business. They're two entirely different things. And it's a really good book. We've lent it to a couple of friends, ultimately having learned the questions, having not read the book. So being slightly altruistic, if you know anyone that's thinking of setting up anything, go for it, but read a book like that first, because it will just sort of help you understand, what reality of coming to work every day might be like. Now for Kirstie, standing in front of people and talking is a passion that she's amazing at. But as Jana knows, to do that involves a lot of preparation, a lot of experience, a lot of training in her case to get that good, and then also a team around you to pay the bills, to order the stock, to run the logistics. So
it's not so much just doing a facial anymore.
And so that's a good book. The E-Myth is a useful book for business.
Thanks for jumping ahead, Luke. We're going to bring it one back, but what's next for you both? What are you most worried about, and what are you most hopeful for?
What's next and what I'm most worried about combined currently. So I think Luke alluded to it earlier. I think in some ways we have created with the refillable deodorant something really, really special. We were the first to do it in the UK. We've now got a couple of competitors. We've still got the most naked one. But internally, we've given ourselves a challenge in that we've now got our first full cosmetic that will stay stable for 3 years, wrapped in a very special piece of paper. We now want all of our cosmetics to do that. But getting a stick wax-based deodorant to do that versus an oil, versus a body wash, versus a scrub is a real challenge. And so currently you can't see, but on the other side of us behind here, we've got all sorts of paper packaging filled with different lotions and potions, waiting to see which leaks out first. Because really that for us is, we almost now don't want to make anything that we can't make refillable in paper. But the fact that the likes of L'Oreal and Unilever, who are also desperately trying to make that change, haven't done it yet, shows you how difficult it is to make an emulsion stay happy in a paper bag.
And for me, it goes a little bit beyond that, which is the consumer's behavior. So, lockdown has been very interesting in lots of ways. I think some people have found it very useful. I know it's been very difficult for lots of people, but some people have found it useful to reset, to think about travel, to think about, do they need to go to the office? The impact that's. I remember, the outstanding pictures of like Venice, the canals like suddenly clearing up. We live under a flight path in our new office. I rarely hear a plane. People are taking time out to be more healthy in the time they've saved. They're hopefully thinking about that. I just hope that some of the good habits stick, and that some of the stuff that because they got swept away with the pandemic, maybe PPE being thrown away on the street, and other things have gone the other way. So my cousin that works for the local council, talking about the rubbish that's left behind now has gone up again. So I just kind of hope there's a redressing which is positive for people's health, but also they don't lose the realization that is all part of the bigger picture for the sustainability of the planet.
Aye, so true, so true. This is now part of the show. It's called the quick fire round. We've got the final three. I appreciate there's two of you here, so just try
it's a race.
First on the buzzer.
Yeah. But yeah, just quick fire round. What's the best business book you've read?
4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. Again, going the next level on from the E-Myth, it's a really great book. And the title was meant to be to capture imagination, the idea of only working 4 hours a week. He wrote it to be a #1 bestseller, which it worked and he achieved. But taking away not that you can only work 4 hours a week in your business, which you could. It's more about finding a structure and outsourcing and building a life where you are not the person that has to do everything, and not everything has to go through you, so that you can, in your mind, be only sort of working 4 hours a week. The rest of it, you can be thinking, strategizing, building partnerships.
Are we meant to answer really quickly, Jana?
Yeah.
Is it meant to be one-word answers?
Yeah.
It's
The irony. The irony.
I'll let that one slide. Kirstie, your best business book.
Bounce by Matthew Saeed, but also really love the kid version, Kid Awesome. I would basically suggest the kids one for any adult, but also if you do have any child, that one, Matthew Saeed.
What's your favorite sustainable hack?
For me, it's eating anything that's left over in the fridge. There's a big piece out on the radio at the moment about how much food is wasted and how impactful that is, because obviously it's producing excess. And I have been known to make sure nothing goes in the bin. The human dustbin.
And mine is every coffee granule being given to my 5-year-old to go and sprinkle around my plants.
Amazing. And last but not least, what would be one bit of advice you would tell your 20-year-old self?
It takes longer than you think.
But go faster.
Thanks, guys. Finally, tell us where we can connect with you both, Pink's Boutique, Proverb Skin, and maybe how can the listeners support you?
So Pink's Boutique is at Pink's Boutique 1 on Instagram and pinksboutique.com on the website. For Pink's, I think probably one of the best places to really understand it would be to join us 4:30 on a Tuesday for Brutal Truth, to really kind of get a grasp of the topics we talk about and where the brand sits. If anyone's interested in trying it, we've got some beautiful little sets called our mini daily routine sets that are like a really nice, easy way in. Because one of my passions, a bit like the truth, is letting people try it on a small scale, small amount, enough to last you a week, but not cost a fortune, so you can see whether your skin really likes it.
Brilliant. And Proverb is at Proverb Skin on everything: Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. And we really, apart from obviously wanting people to try the product, we're actually looking for feedback. And we're still at a stage where people's feelings about sustainability, about what they're going through, and what would make them convert. And I think a big thing for us is, what is the barrier that's making them not do the things that they kind of feel they should or they want to do? But they're not living, or they're pinning their hopes on the business delivering that like we are. They actually just want an easy fix. Any feedback is fantastic.
Also, from next week, Shannon, we're putting a shout out for Proverb for the refillable deodorant. We're actually looking for influencers and ambassadors who want to try it. So if anyone listening is said influencer, lives in the world of social, or knows anyone that does that might want to try it, then just literally DM us Proverb Skin and we can get you some to try.
And wrapping a bow on it, we always ask them to be honest as well. So there's no script, there's no say this. It's literally going back to that idea of how do we become better. It's by, if you're going to be brutally truthful, you have to be able to willing to accept the brutal truth back. The other way. Lucky for some that that's the way I was built. So thanks so much, and it's been really great being on.
Thank you so much. Real pleasure, guys. I'll see you very soon. Bye for now.
Okay.
Bye.
Hi, guys. If you were inspired by my conversation with Kirstie and Luke, please remember to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with anyone you think would love to join our community. Remember, live what you listen and put into action what you've learned today, because knowledge isn't power, it's potential power. And you have to use that knowledge for it to be powerful. Together, we can make the sustainable attainable. I'm Janavelli, and this is the Kind Community Show.